Today we're going to be talking about how to use brushes in Lightroom. I already have a photo here that I'm going to use, and I've got it modified to a certain extent, but I do have some things that I would like to change. One of those things happens to be the reddish tint on her arm here. So we're going to start off by going up here to the brushes. You simply click on that, and then you have a brush panel that comes up. Now you can click on the effect up here, and the standard Lightroom brushes are these up here, right above this line. These automatically come with your Lightroom program. All of these down here are things that I have purchased or I have created. So I'm going to start with something that I've purchased just because it's already there for me. So I'm going to go to Redcast Remedy here. I'm going to look at my size and my feather and my flow before I begin painting onto my photo. Because I have a larger area here, I'm going to use a larger brush, which I already have selected. And because I want to remove most of the red, I'm going to keep my flow at max. If you decrease that, it decreases the amount of intensity of that brush. It uses all of the same presets as the brush has, but it doesn't put it in as dark. So I'm going to leave mine at 100% because I really want to get rid of this red. And as you can see, I'm painting this on here and it's decreasing that tremendously. I want to get rid of a little bit more so I can manually modify this brush myself, and I can desaturate this just a little bit more. Now we don't want to desaturate too much. If we do, then she's going to have a black and white arm as opposed to just getting rid of a little bit of that red. Okay, so I'm happy with that. I do want to smooth out her arm a little bit, so I'm going to go to a new brush, and I'm going to find yet another brush that I want to use, and mine is called Skin Smooth. And what this does is, as you can see, it just pretty much just takes away some of that clarity. It softens some of that noise, so that's your little softening tool. The nice thing about these preset brushes is that if you've already got them or if you've created them, then you don't have to try to remember to move those sliders a certain way each time. Okay, so I'm done with those two brushes. So now we can look at the before and after. Now as you can see, a lot of that purple reddish is gone. So it doesn't take away from the photo itself. Okay, so we'll go back into our single view. Now if I wanted to create a brush, it's very simple. I know that sounds a little scary, but you can create things and you can keep them for later use. So I'm going to go back into my brushes. Right now it's on Portrait Skin Smooth, but I'm going to go ahead and change this because what I want to do is I want to start with an exposure brush. We're going to see about darkening her hair up just a little bit here. And that is way too much, but we can modify that. But this is a good starting point so you can see where you're painting. Remember, whatever you're doing is not permanent, and I will show you how you can delete these brushes as well. And how to erase a brush if you've painted on too much. Okay, so in this example is perfect. First of all, I would never want to change a client's hair this much, as that is not representative of them. But I do want to darken it a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my exposure because it's a little too dark. I just want to make a subtle change in the darkness of her hair. Okay, so I've done that. Now, I know that I painted on a little bit too much of that darkening. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here below my photo and I'm going to show my selected mask. And you can see in red where we've got the mask, okay? So what we're going to do is I've gotten a little bit into her cheek, and I know that's kind of hard to tell right here, but I'm going to select my erase, and I'm going to come up here, and I'm going to make sure that I have a nice and feathered brush, and I'm just going to go into her cheek a little bit and get rid of some of that darkness, because I don't want to make her face any darker. And then her dress as well, down here by her hair. Okay, I'm going to take off this selected mask, and we're going to see what we're left with. Alright. So we're going to keep it like that. We're going to add a little bit of contrast to this, and I'm going to add a little bit of yellow because it kind of looks a little green to me. And add a little bit of magenta and a little bit of yellow until I'm satisfied. Okay, that looks like a natural blonde. So I'm going to click over here under custom, where we just were, okay? And I'm going to scroll all the way down, and I'm going to put Save Current Setting as a new preset. And this is the fun part. You get to name. So I'm going to go and name it from blonde to dark blonde. And I can use that preset that I've created on other models that I'd like. So let's look at the before and after of her hair. Let's click done so we can get out of our brush panel, and let's look at our before and after. You can see it's a change. It's a subtle change, but it's a pretty change. It's not compromising who she is as a person with her style, but it's just bringing a little bit more emphasis into her hair and making it a little bit darker. Okay, another thing that we're going to do is I'm going to work on her eyes a little bit. And we'll zoom out just a tad, go back into my brushes, and I happen to have a brush for that as well. And this is called Portrait Eyes Brown. You can buy these brushes and other presets, if you will, online. You just have to simply look for them. Obviously this brush is a little too big, so I'm going to take my wheel on my mouse and scroll down towards myself so that way it makes it smaller. And then I'm just going to paint on her eye. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. Now, in my opinion, some photographers go a little bit too crazy and they put too much exposure. Then they put too much clarity. And then they put too much saturation in her eyes. And what you get is something that doesn't look real. We don't want somebody to look like they have marbles for eyes or cat eyes or what have you. When you get too much into that, then they begin to look fake. So be careful how much of that you do. Again, that's just my opinion. So with this, I'm going to go back into here and I'm going to darken her eye back up a little bit because I feel like that's a little much. We do want her eyes to be brown, and we do want them to pop, but we don't want to over accentuate it, as much. Now I want to whiten her eyes up a little bit, so I'm going to grab a new brush, and I'm going to paint on her the whites of her eyes, and I'm going to use a brush called White Brush. It's hard to see that change right there because of the point, but I'm going to come over here and do the same thing on this side, and then we'll be able to see the effect a little bit better. I'm going to increase my exposure just a tad. Again, not too much. If you do too much, it will look fake. We don't want to look fake. We want to look natural. So I'm also going to change my flow in this just a little bit, and that will kind of feather it out for me, but still give me that pretty look that I'm looking for. I'm going to change the contrast a little bit. And I'm going to bring down the clarity so it's a softer look. Okay, so let's zoom out and make sure we still look natural. I think that looks pretty decent. Let's look at the before and after. Okay, so it's still natural. She still has pretty much a lot of white over here, and we kept it over here. We just wanted to intensify it just a tad bit to bring out some of that brown. As you can see, her eyes are popping a little bit better. Perfect. Okay, so we have lost a little bit of detail with the preset over here that we've used, so I'm going to bring some of that back. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here so I can just see what I'm doing. Go back over to my brushes. Brushes are so handy. You don't have to change everything about the photo to get a little bit of an effect that you need. So I'm going to go to my grit brush, and what this does is, if you look at the sliders, basically it just brings up the clarity, it brings up the highlights, and it contrasts it out a little bit, takes down a little bit of, or adds a little bit of noise so that you get a little bit more of a what they call grit. So I'm just going to go over the ring here. And we're going to get some of this detail back that we lost. Now for me, I'm going to underexpose it just a little bit more so that it has a little bit more chance of popping. And you can always play with these sliders, always, always. So if you get out of there and you decide, oh, I don't like what I've done, then you can always go back and check it out. And I'm just hovering over my point because I want to make sure that I've got, which I did not get a lot of my brush painted. Sometimes it doesn't continue to paint after I'm going over it. So you just kind of have to make sure that your mask is actually there. And I'll hover it over again and make sure. There we go. Now I can tell that that's all pink. Okay. So I'm going to put my exposure just a tad bit more. And get that where I want that. So let's hit done. So that's much better. Let's look at the before and after. Increase my view just a little bit. Well, my computer's just not playing nice, is it? Okay. Well, we'll blow it up a lot of it, I guess. Now the ring wasn't originally the focus in this image. Obviously we had the focus on her hands, or I'm sorry, on her face. So her ring isn't going to be in the depth of field that her face is. So it is going to be a little bit blurry. But you can still see the difference between the two. This one is a little bit clearer and it has a little bit more detail. And you can continue to increase that if you want, if you even wanted to make it even a little bit darker. By doing that, you just simply click back on your brush that you'd already put on there and then just modify it. So if we want to change it a little bit more, we can do that. If we want to add more clarity, we can do that. And that'll make it a little bit grungier, but that's okay in this instance because this isn't the focal point of the picture. So we'll click done, and we will go back to our single view, and we will look at it as a whole. Okay, so I hope that this helps you a little bit learning about brushes and when and how to use them. There are a million different ways. There are a million different brushes. Feel free to make all your own or go purchase them online, however you'd like. But brushes do come in handy. So keep on lookout for our other tutorials. Thanks so much.